Welcome to The Thriving Marriage, the podcast for those who want to get their spouse back in love with them and truly thrive.
You'll learn why 95% of people don't save their marriage and the secret method no one else is talking about that will change everything for you. Are you ready? Let's turn tragedy to triumph.
Here are your hosts, international marriage experts, Mark Johnston and Heather Choate.
All right, welcome everyone here to the Thriving Marriage podcast. Mark and I are international marriage experts, and we're super excited because we have a special guest today. Ferrin Williams, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Ferrin.
Awesome. How are you doing, Mark?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking.
Cool. We're really excited to share with you a little bit about Ferrin's journey and the things that he has overcome personally as he's been working on his relationship and applying the principles that Mark and I teach here. And so before we get to that, we always want to share our client win of the week. And I literally pulled this one off of our members group this morning. This one comes from Holly. I bet you're watching, Holly, because you're amazing. This one comes from Holly. She says, huge win. He will leave other women and focus on his mindset and make effort on our relationship. It will take time. We want our marriage to be successful and not fall into the same routine or distress it was once in. So I pray this is real. Please let it be real. I'm focusing on what I can control, showing love, understanding, and support, and growing into the best version of myself. And then Matthew commented here that this also happened for him 2 days ago. And he says, keep praying, take it slowly, steady, don't push. That's what everyone keeps telling me. I want to run it with full steam. I want the affection and all of it again, but I have to give them time in their transition from the other person and not push them back. So prayers to all of us out there fighting for our loved ones. So I want to give a double high thrive to both Holly and to Matthew for reaching this incredible milestone in their relationship. So good job to you guys. And now, without further ado, we're going to bring in Ferrin here. And I can see a lot of you watching live. Hello, thanks for joining us. So Ferrin, tell us a little bit about where you were before you started with us, where you were personally and also where your relationship was.
Before I started, I was pretty much lost. My relationship, we were doing pretty well, I thought, but my wife never really communicated that we had issues. When I had a scare where I was in the hospital the beginning of January last year for about a month, where they weren't sure if I was going to live or die. When I finally came out of it, my wife and I were talking, and she said, there were times when I kind of wish you had passed away, so this wouldn't have to happen, so it wouldn't be so rough. And that was a hard pill to swallow.
So it almost sounds like at that point, you kind of noticed like there's some problems probably coming up here that you were telling us you weren't aware that a lot of these problems were going on.
Yeah,
so,
I think I was pretty much oblivious to that fact.
So how did that develop out then? I mean, here she's saying, maybe it would have been better if you had passed. I like you said, it must have been a big blow, but that wasn't the only thing that happened around that time. I mean, I remember from our previous conversations, that's around the time when she really started to pull away, wasn't it?
Yeah, she had been pulling away a little bit before that, but I was focusing on trying to earn a living for my family. Mm-hmm. I grew up in an era with my dad. He worked all the time. We didn't play games. We didn't do anything. And so, that was my thought process is I provide for my family. So that's my love for you guys. It's showing, buying you things. That's my love for you guys.
Sure. So it sounds like you were really trying your hardest and trying to show love the best way you could. It just wasn't necessary. It sounds like the two of you just weren't on the same page.
Yes. I later found out that her love language is me doing things for her. Come home, do dishes, sweep the floor. The acts of service is what she wanted. But like I said, my mindset was, okay, I just bought you a brand new car. I love you, but that wasn't what she wanted.
Well, Heather, you and I have talked about this sort of thing even within our own marriages at times. I believe I know me many years ago, when I was really quite busy, some similar things were going on. And, my wife and I were pulling apart and found out, hey, we were speaking different love languages. I get the impression here that this is really something common within a lot of relationships. Heather, have you seen that?
Right. And you can call it love languages. You can call it different needs. I mean, it goes by different names. But one of the kind of common mistakes that happens is that we assume that our partner gets that we're showing them love, and that we think that we know how they receive that love, and vice versa. They think that they're showing us love, and oftentimes we just are completely on different pages, right? So that's why it's really crucial that we uncover what our core needs are, what our love language is, whatever you want to call it, so that we can really understand each other. So I appreciate you sharing that, Ferrin, because it's really common. You're not the one out there. I think almost every single marriage has probably hit this point where you thought that you were doing the right things, only to realize that, wow, they actually weren't, right? So I'm really curious, Ferrin, what were some of the things that you did once this point happened and she started pulling away? What were some of the things that you did to try to solve the problem before you started, our method, and why did they work or not work?
We didn't ever go to any kind of counseling sessions. Most of our, I would take her out on Friday nights. We would go, that was our date night. Friday nights, we'd buy a pizza for the kids. Kids would stay home and do their thing. And then we would go out and, have dinner, go to a movie, those kinds of things. But again, it was just too late. She had already given up. She had already thought everything through to the point where she was making her quote unquote escape plan.
Okay, and so I hear that excuse. We're probably going to say this quite often. Like, we hear that sort of thing a lot. So, did you? I want to make sure that everyone is clear on what happened here. It sounds like you really tried to go a little bit further with this, or do more with the dates as a way to solve the problem. Is that what you're talking about, or did you do something different? Because I'm not sure if it was more the same, or you really tried some new solutions here.
No, because before it was, I worked in retail for the past 15 years, and retail, you really don't have set days off. You're as a member of management and retail management, they take advantage of you very much so. You can work 60 hours a week because you're salaried, so they don't care. And so, before this all occurred, I was just running along doing my thing, and she was kind of doing her thing. So, now that I look back at everything, I can see the signs of where we were kind of on our own paths. But at that point, when she told me that, we would go out for dinner. We would take the kids out. We would do all kinds of family things, fun things. So yeah, I was going the extra mile. I was trying to save save my marriage at that point. Buying her flowers, sending her little gifts at work, those kinds of things. But like I said, it didn't help the process.
Well, so where are the two of you right now? I mean, you worked with us for a while, and I kind of know quite a bit of the story. But do you mind sharing with everyone here, where are things at right now?
We are we have 4 kids together, so we see each other quite often. There for a little while, she was very hateful towards me. Didn't want to have anything to do with me. Didn't want me to enter house. Didn't want me anywhere. So, we're still separated. The other day we were having an issue with our oldest child, and she came over and we talked, with the oldest child through some things. And my wife said, I want you to know, and she was talking to my daughter. She's like, I want to tell everybody this. She's like, I I finally forgiven you for everything that happened. She said, I don't feel hatred towards you anymore. She said, because when I got to realize it was only hurting me. And so, and she's trying to push my kids to have a relationship with me. But as far as our relationship, we're still, things are getting better, but very, very slowly.
Mm-hmm.
I do know that she plans on filing for divorce at the end of this month. So that's kind of where we're at.
Well, and this is partially why we actually invited you to join us for this interview, because, we oftentimes, Heather and I, when we're talking about the client wins, we oftentimes highlight those situations where the husband and wife or the couple, they get back together and they start to reconcile. But that's also not all the couples that we work with. And then that's also not the only measure of some progress or success here. So, I mean, what you're explaining there, it sounds like things were really tense. I mean, you said she hated, really had a lot of hatred towards you. And if I remember correctly, when we were first talking, yeah, she would hardly speak to you. She would speak unkindly about you in front of the kids, all sorts of things like that. And it sounds like everything has really toned down quite a bit. And you guys are able to actually be around each other and be comfortable with each other, which is huge compared to where you used to be.
Yeah, it is. And, everything that's happened working with you guys has been, there's been some hard times, but I can look and see the wins that I've had. When I first came to you, man, I was a bawling wreck. I couldn't talk about the situation without crying, and now, worked with Heather a couple of times on some mindset things, talking with you. I'm happy. I'm truly happy where I'm at right now. I've worked on myself to the point where I can accept myself. I hated myself before.
Mm-hmm.
I look back and I wasn't the greatest father and I wasn't the greatest husband, but I'm at the point right now where I know that if it doesn't work out with my wife and I, and somebody else enters my life, it's going to be a great relationship, because I can handle myself now. I'm good with how I am and the person that I became through this whole process.
I mean, that in and of itself, that's huge. I can't tell you how many people, just even outside of the business here, how many people I run into that, they give some sort of indication, like what you said, like they just aren't really happy with themselves, and to be okay it's a really big thing here.
I just highlight real quick just the contrast. Sometimes we're always looking for the specific result, right? We want the wife to come back, we want the divorce to stop, and we get so fixated on something that we really don't have complete control over. And that's why the intention that Mark and I have is that every life comes away better, and that we learn from our challenges and we become the best version of ourselves, right? Because so many people come away from sorry, I'm stuttering. Come away from a struggling marriage or a marriage that ends in divorce, and they're broken because of it. So not only did they come from a place of I don't like myself, I'm unhappy, and all those things, but then they come away even more broken, more unhappy, less trusting of themselves, less trusting of other people. And I think that is the beauty of your journey here, Ferrin, is that you really have worked on yourself and developing that self-love and that mindset of I'm going to be okay. That's the shift that we talk about has to happen in order to have success, regardless of what the relationship happens, right? Because the ultimate success is that we live with peace at the end of our lives, that we are who we're meant to be and we're doing the very best that we can. And that gives you that sense of peace, right? Of knowing it's going to be okay and that I'm okay.
Yes.
So I really appreciate it.
I think even beyond this, I mean, you talked to me about how much you've repaired your relationship with your kids, and in and of itself, I mean, it's going to have a large impact on your life. Now, with everything that's happened, what do you think's been the most challenging part of this whole experience?
The most challenging part of the experience was her relationship with the other man.
Mm-hmm.
That, to me, and I told you I wouldn't get emotional, but
That's fine.
For 17 years, 4 children together. And for her to be with another man, that's what hurts. And it wasn't just one time. We lived in San Antonio when we first started this thing, and some things happened, and we moved to Arizona, this little small town, and we were here for probably a couple of months, and he showed up out here. I thought that we were finally away from that whole situation, and then he shows back up here, and it's like nothing ever ended. Finally he's out of her life. He packed up. They got into an argument. He packed up, and the funny thing is that he cheated on her when we were in San Antonio, and she still accepted him back. And that was disheartening to me, because I'm like, okay, this guy cheats on you, but you forgive him, but you can't forgive me for trying to provide for my family and give you everything that I could, but not, quote unquote, focusing on you. So I think truly that has been the hardest part. I'm on a bunch of the different groups that we have in here, and that seems to be a common thing, is that the spouse steps out on their relationship. And I know that people suffer for that. I did. And it still hurts to this day. Even though I love myself, it hurts to this day. And I don't know when I'm ever going to be over that.
Yeah. Well, there's so much packed into something like that when your spouse does step outside of the marriage to be with someone else. All those questions of whether that's guilt, like, did I cause this, or shame, like thinking maybe I'm not good enough. And which is why this was what you were saying earlier was, I think, so inspiring, is because you're saying yourself, you've come to a really healthy place. And I mean, yes, this is going to hurt, but just the fact that you've been able to really get into a healthy state in your own life is inspiring here. Now, actually, this was news to me, Ferrin. It's been probably about a month since we last spoke. So the other man is gone, and it sounds like, I know that when he was gone for a while, things were starting to improve between you and your wife. So, hey, I mean, so
we've talked a lot, and how religious and stuff I am. She vowed that she wouldn't go to church because she saw me there, and she didn't want to go to church. She was living outside of her covenants that she had made, and so she just wasn't going to church. And he leaves, and the next Sunday she's at church. So I know that relationship caused a lot of issues for me, but now that he's out of the picture, he's not completely out of the picture. They still talk every once in a while, but he's out of my sight. I don't have to deal with him, and I can speak freely and do what I need to do to attempt to salvage my marriage and my relationship with my children.
Mm-hmm. So what, considering all the challenges that you've gone through, and you sharing that you've gotten to a really healthy spot right here. At what point did you actually know that you were going to be okay with everything that was going on?
Honestly, I think probably about 2 months ago. It was around 2 months ago that I just got to the point where, you know what, I can do what I can do. If I can't control what's going on, there's no sense in me getting upset about it. There's no sense in me worrying about those things that I can't control. I can only control what I can control, and I'm happy with that. I have a job that I absolutely love going to, not in the retail world anymore. I love my job. I love my coworkers. It's everything is just kind of falling into place. And so I'm just, that's where I'm at right now. I'm just happy. It took a long time. I think I've been fighting this battle for probably about 9 months now. But I'm just happy that I'm there. To that point where I can be happy.
Everyone would like to know, Ferrin, people in the groups, I don't think you can see the comments, but there's a lot of them, they're saying thank you for being vulnerable and sharing, Ferrin. So just want to let you know that there's a lot of people that are appreciating you and supporting you and honoring you through this.
Well, this is what I really like actually about kind of the community that we've created around this whole thing is I see so much support and care from the other members towards each other. This is a lot of what we try to instill and teach in the people that we work with, but then see just a lot of that kindness and understanding. It's heartwarming.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. So you got to this point now. What do you think is the most important thing that you learned through this process, trying to put everything back together?
It's really, for me, it's been self-love.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I really, really didn't, I didn't like myself for a long time. Many, many years I didn't like myself. I worked with Heather one time, and she brought something to the forefront that I had been trying to, keep buried for a long time. And coming to the realization that, I was a control freak. I controlled everything. I had to have control of everything. Finances, where my kids were, where she was. It was just, I needed the control. And then this happens and I can't control anything. So, I came to the realization that whatever I can't control is not worth fighting, But I think the most important thing for me was self-love, to come out of this thing and actually like myself again.
That's an important lesson. And I think something that's really sometimes hard to accept, especially when someone else is pulling away, or they might have some really unhealthy messages about, how lovable someone might be. I hear comments all the time from other couples about some of the mean things that are said. And so it's not an easy thing to take away from this, especially with the kind of problems that you were facing. So here you learned this, all this about self-love. Now, if you could go back and do all this over again, what would you really want others to know about, what they could maybe do differently here?
That's a tough question, Mark.
Yeah, it's hard to just put it all into like one bit of it, one bit of wisdom here or anything.
It is.
Even going back into like the times when you weren't really even aware of what was going on, all the problems that your wife was experiencing, and her concerns. I mean, earlier you were talking about how you didn't even know that the concerns were that great. I mean, would it be something to do with that, or is there something else maybe?
I think that, you know, had I known, had I had an idea, yes. I mean, it would have been so much easier to fix what I had broken, or what was broken in our marriage. You know, I one of the things that she said that I did was, when she wanted to talk about something serious, I would laugh about it, or we'd get into an argument about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I would do that a lot differently. You know, take her more seriously than I did. You know, try and hear her side of things. It's always easy. It was always easier for me to, I guess, stay in my own little bubble and think things were great, and make light of what she thought was important or what she needed. And so I think that that's one of the biggest things that I would have done differently, is I would have listened to her and not try to talk over her, or, you know, change the subject or anything like that. Because, you know, one of the things that I've learned through this whole thing is a little bit more selflessness, I guess. Now it's to the point where when we talk, I actually listen to her, and I repeat things back to her, and I don't really understand what you're saying. Can you explain it to me differently? And that has made a huge impact on our relationship, because now she feels like, oh, he's listening to me. You know, my input is important too, not just his. And so I think that is probably one of the biggest pieces of advice that I could offer, is listen to what your spouse is saying.
Yeah. I hear what a lot, like you were saying, and I hear this in many other cases. You know, I think people get into this point where they say, well, you know, my husband or my wife they're always going to be there for me. We have these promises that we've made to each other. We have all this time together. We have all these kids together. You know, it becomes a lot easier to deal with what is more immediately pressing, and to put off some of the more difficult things. And I don't like to fault anyone for that, but it's certainly a good piece of advice, is to really take the relationship seriously.
I love what you highlighted here about the understanding piece. That goes right into what we teach with the PATH method, right? It's all about gaining that perspective and really listening. Like, now that's a huge transformation from where you were before, and the kind of communication that you had, the kind of interactions that you had. And now you can see that you're clearly wanting to understand her. You're trying to deeply understand her because you care about her and you're really listening, which means that's a huge milestone that's been achieved. We've said it so many times here that we aren't often taught that. We just get stuck in the same patterns that were modeled by our parents and modeled in our culture, and they don't serve us, and we don't know how to really communicate, how to understand, how to open up conversation, so that we can really build that bridge together. You know, for me, it was that I modeled a very cyclical, volatile type of communication, and that wreaked havoc in my marriage for about 8 years. Until we finally both learned how to actually understand each other. And that understanding, that being able to listen, it is so healing, and it is so amazing, the kind of connection that it brings, even if things aren't going great, and that you can learn from that person, that you can learn about yourself, and that you can learn about how relationships really need to work.
Well, it's interesting that when we do have interactions, you know, when I ask questions and when I talk, you know, actually listen and do those things, the conversation goes longer, and she opens up more to me than, you know, if it's a quick, hey, I just came to give the kids a kiss, and, you know, it's so much different, the interaction that we have, when I'm paying attention and I'm relaying the messages back to her that she's telling me. And when I, you know, ask those questions, it's amazing how long some of our conversations have gone just by doing that. And so much, you learn so much more about the situation by just doing, what you taught in the path class.
Right. And with that, that's how we make sure that we're not focusing on the symptoms, right? We teach that like the affair, as that is painful. It absolutely is. But it is the symptom of what's really going on. And so when you're able to have that understanding and the listening, then you're able to uncover why did that happen in the first place. And you can start to recognize what she's needing, what her motivation is, and be able to solve some of those deeper root issues. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we had a comment here about love languages versus root issues, right? And I wouldn't say it's an either or type thing, but we definitely want to make sure that we are solving those root issues causing the symptoms to appear.
Well, I think that brings up an important point, because there's so many theories on how relationships come together. Now, Heather and I, we tend to prefer some theories over others. And I think there's a good place for just about all of them. For me personally, I think that the love languages is a really good way to understand how people connect to one another, but I don't think it explains all the different parts of a relationship, and all the other intricacies. I think it just really explains well that one piece. Anyways.
Yeah.
So Ferrin, what were the most helpful things in this journey, taking you to this point, that really helped you get to where you are right now?
Honestly, if I didn't have you and Mark, I probably wouldn't be where I am today. Those conversations, weekly conversations I had with Mark, the conversations that I had with you, there's absolutely no way that I would be where I am right now. I would probably be still just a blubbering ball of mess, because you guys through the programs you guys teach, it taught me how to talk to my wife. It taught me how to listen. It taught me how the interactions needed to be, all those different things. And if it wasn't for that, I promise you, I don't think that I would be where I am today.
Well, thanks. Always nice to hear things like that. Just to be clear, we didn't tell you to say these things.
No, you didn't tell me those things. But I'm just, it's an honest answer.
Yeah,
it really is. And then, of course, since I am a spiritual person, leaning on God, praying. Mm-hmm. Praying every moment that I get, keeping a prayer in my mind, keeping a prayer in my heart. All those things. I really don't think I'd be where I am today.
Right. Well, so with everything that's gone on, and you're saying that you're in a really good place now, and I think like part of being in a really good place is having some hope for the future. And I'm just curious, Ferrin, what are you hoping for in terms of yourself, in terms of your relationships? What are you looking forward to?
I don't know. I've had a couple of really deep spiritual talks with my bishop. Had some, blessings or laying on of hands, whatever you want to call it, that kind of thing. But I think there's still a future for my wife and I. Even if we get divorced, you hear how many stories about people who get divorced, things calm down, and then, we're back in a relationship. We're getting married again. I really feel deep down inside that that's my hope.
Yeah.
That's where my hope lies, is that we get back together. Again, if I don't get back with my wife, I know that God's going to place somebody in my life that is going to treat me better. No, I'm just kidding. But we'll have a much better relationship than I did my first one.
That's and right there, just having that hope there, just kind of the idea that your wife and you could get back together. You're right. I do see things like that quite frequently, and it sounds like from everything that you've been talking to us about today, if you and your wife were to be able to get to that point, it sounds like you would be in a really good place to make that relationship work a lot better this time around.
Absolutely, without a doubt. I'm 100% committed to this. I'm 100% committed to my wife and my relationship. I would be, and that's what I wish that she could understand. She sees the changes in me. She knows that I've changed. One of her biggest things, though, is you've changed before for a couple of days or a couple of months, and then you went right back to the way you were. And so, that's one of the things that I have to prove to her is like, look, I'm a completely different person. I don't yell at my kids anymore. I don't get upset about stupid things. That's just how I am right now. And, I know that I could take that part of our relationship and make it so much better, and that's what my hope is, to be able to show her, look, I was an idiot back then. I know, but look at how I can treat you now. Listen to the conversations that we have, deep, deep conversations, and so I'm in that place where if we were to get back together, our relationship would be, I feel, amazing.
Mm-hmm. This is what I love about working in this sort of field is there's nothing like a really big challenge to really motivate someone to really make some fundamental changes in their life for the better and to come out better, like a better person on the other end. I know some of the biggest challenges even in my life has really made, looking back on them, I would absolutely do them all over again, because even though it sucked at the time, because I knew I came out better on the other side because of it. Sounds like you've come to some similar conclusions here that, maybe not wanting that again, but it sounds like you're really saying, hey, I'm really a much better person. I'm much, and I know I could be happier.
It is. It's true. I as funny as it sounds, and people, when I say this, I actually thank my Heavenly Father for what I've been going through, because it's made me a better person. It's made me a better dad. It's made me a better husband. I was kind of in a rut. I was stuck, and I was comfortable with where I was at. But this has completely taken me out of my comfort zone, of course. But it's through what has happened with our relationship that I've been able to turn into a better person, and to be able to understand where she's coming from and understand where my children are coming from, and not get upset when, things don't go my way. Kind of felt like a little baby. I'd throw a fit because I didn't get things to go my way.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Heather, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, comment here is, amen, you are courageous and strong. So, Ferrin, I can't promise that your wife's going to come back. I can't promise that, that the affair is going to end and everything. But what I absolutely can promise, and what I want everyone here to really pay attention to, is this incredible mindset that you're coming at this challenge with, and that you have that faith, and that you have that strength, and that you're committed. Like you said, you're 100% committed to doing what it takes to be a better person, and to be a better father, and to be a good companion. And that now you know how to understand, how to open communication, and you have those skills so that no matter what happens, good things are going to come for you. That's an absolute guarantee. There's no way that it can't. When you have that kind of mindset, that the internal shifts happen, right? And then the external results start to manifest, and you will see them. And it takes time, and you're in that process. Like you said, you're going to have to show her some consistency, but that's what this is about. And you're in it for the long haul, and you're doing the work, and you're even strong right now, even when things externally might not be ideal. You're still recognizing the progress that's been made, and you know that more is going to keep coming. So there are really good things that are coming for you. And we're grateful for you for sharing this with us and inspiring each of us. We see so many people just completely crumble. And I'm sure everyone here that's listening, and you, Ferrin, know what people have gone through similar challenges, and they've let it completely defeat them, and they've let it claim them, and their happiness and their family and their future. And that's it. They become a victim to the entire thing. And so we so appreciate you standing here and showing the example that it doesn't have to be that way. We can let these things empower us and even get to a place of peace and serenity as we're working like heck to make it work the right way, right? Yeah. So again, yeah, we appreciate you. Here at the end of our interview and our time together, is there any final thoughts that you would like to share? If you could feel like someone else's heart today, if you could reach them through this message, what would you want to share with them?
I think the biggest thing that I would like to say, I see it in the message boards all the time. Don't give up hope. Don't give up hope. There's always something that happens to bring you back to where you need to be. Change your mindset. The mindset, when I first, honestly, and I'm gonna probably, Heather's gonna get mad at me, but when I first started this course and talking about mindset and things like that, I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this all about? This whole mindset thing, this is stupid. I was not accepting of it whatsoever, but that's what has to change. Your mindset is what has to change. Knowing that no matter what happens, you're going to be okay. Knowing no matter what happens, you can take and learn from the experience that you're having right now. There's always something to learn from, and that's going to make you better down the line. It's going to make you a better person. And so please work on your mindset and never give up hope.
That is beautiful. I think we need to make that a meme and blast it across social media there. Thank you so much, Ferrin. But that's so true. It might sound cliche. It might sound, I don't know, hippie or woo-woo or weird. But it really comes down to who we want to be at the end of our lives and what kind of person we want to be. And if we're not living true to that best version of ourselves, then we always have the opportunity to do so now. And when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change, like the saying goes. And you've done that. So again, thank you very much, Ferrin. We really appreciate you sharing. If anyone else out there is really wanting some help, wanting some clarity, then I encourage you to do what Ferrin did, to book a free breakthrough call with us. That's kind of the first step on the journey to learning how to apply these principles and get on a path to becoming your very best self. So you can do that over at highthrivecoaching.com/apply. Next week, we are going to share with you how we've helped literally thousands of couples, not only to save their marriage, but to do what Ferrin's done here and become a better version of themselves. And so we will see you next time. Thank you so much, Ferrin, and thank you, Mark.
See you, everyone. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for listening to The Thriving Marriage, your A to Z blueprint for not just surviving marriage, but thriving. Until next time, my friends, thrive on.